Hello everyone, Cindy Saddleman here, and it is time for another top 5. We had the worst replacement host in America, we had the best replacement host in America, we had the worst replacement host international edition, and this time around, we end the series with best replacement host international edition. Now, I want to be clear on something about this video. I've seen quite a few, and they seem to be more prevalent in the UK than they are in Australia or Canada. And that's going to be the focus because, language barrier and everything along those lines. Also, I did see some Australian Family Feud suggestions about during that original convoluted run. I have not seen enough Australian Family Feud to decipher if this guy was a good host or this guy was a bad host, or this was a good replacement or this was a bad replacement. You're not going to see any Australian Family Feud hosts on this channel or on this list. And once again, hosts that I've seen enough to have a good clarification on whether they did a great job will be on this list. Was that clear enough for you? Well, hopefully it is. Because here are the top 5 best replacement hosts in game show history, international
One
edition.
thing was for sure, they both believed Sparks to be a total tool.
Be an exciting contest which shows that divorced couples can still have fun together, right?
Mythological hero H-list. C. On the spot dice spin.
We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
We're going to start things off on a somber note with number 5. The tale of Countdown after the death of Richard Whiteley, its long-standing host, is quite interesting to say the least. When the show was brought back after the hiatus of Whiteley's death, Carol Vorderman announced the new host, which was Des Lynam. Des Lynam was not a good fit for the show. He is a good sports broadcaster and does all of the studio shows rather well. Countdown just was not it for him. So, to rectify that, he was replaced after a couple of series with Des O'Connor, and it felt like Whiteley was kind of back, in my opinion. Des O'Connor handled the show professionally and really cared about the show because he probably watched a lot of it and really enjoyed it. And him being a quite regular game show presenter, because I remember him hosting very fondly Take Your Pick in the mid-90s. And he did a really damn good job there, and he did a really damn good job here. I think what cinched him at number 5 for me was there's this one clip on YouTube where, to show how Des really knew the game and loved it, he actually bested Carol Vorderman in a numbers game. She was one out, couldn't get it, but Des nailed it. And he then decided to retire after a few series. And then Carol Vorderman decided to retire. And that means the only person left on the show, the last woman standing, was Susie Dent from the original run. And then we had Jeff Stelling and so on and so forth. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the new... Oh, Rachel Riley replaced Carol Vorderman. And the show is still going strong. And it's good watching. So if you've seen new episodes of Countdown, do check it out. It's well worth your time. Now, here's something odd for this list. 5 was the easiest pick. It's 4 through 1, trying to organize who had the best impact, who I thought was the best host, all of that stuff. So, 4 through 1 on this list, you can make great arguments for that they should be number 1. So, for number 4, we're sticking in the UK for number 4. And I have to go with Les Dennis replacing Max Bygraves on Family Fortunes, because they took a bit of a hiatus after 1985. It came back in 87. Max was not brought back. Les Dennis was brought in. Youthful host, all his wonderful impressions, and he seemed to add that bit of levity, that bit of comedy, bouncing off of the contestants. And who can forget one of his favorite catchphrases? All right, if it's up there, I'll give you the money myself. And there's that infamous moment where it actually happened. And him being such a great sport about it, really resonated with me. And that was near the twilight of his hosting run on Family Fortunes. But even before that, he had great moments with every single contestant that was on. If I were to make a comparison, if Bob Monkhouse and Max Bygraves were the Richard Dawson era, the Les Dennis era of Family Fortunes was the Ray Combs era, just without Ray Combs getting shafted in 1994. Les Dennis would unfortunately be replaced himself because of network cheapness, moving the show to daytime, and we talked about Andy Collins on the worst list. He was awful. Shocked that you have such a big dip in quality there. Just goes to show you how amazing Les Dennis was. Number 3 is going to be our lone Canadian entry onto this list, because from what I learned from Canadian game shows, it's like 2 seasons and done. Very rarely does a show last longer than that. I know Mad Dash had 3 seasons. Guess What had 4 seasons. But Definition had 15. It's the longest running Canadian game show of all time. And one big reason for that is Jim Perry replacing Bob McLean on Definition. Now, Bob McLean was the original host. Jim Perry was the announcer. After the first season, Jim Perry replaced Bob McLean. Dave Duvall replaced Jim Perry. Magic happens. And to be frank, it was a very well done show of Jim Perry. Jim Perry had that everyman persona. He held it. He was professional. He got along with everybody. He made the contestants feel welcome, especially back in the day. The original 12 years of the show had celebrities. He made them feel welcome, and some of them who weren't that great at the game was able to get some good understanding through Jim. And his pun du jours were very funny as well. It's sort of like what we had in America with Sale of the Century after the bridge to break from the Last Question segment 2 to the commercial break, and it was very funny as well. Sure, groan-inducing, but that was the point of Definition. All the puns, they were groan-inducing. And it's one of my favorite Canadian game shows. I mean, and if you want to see the greatness of that, shameless plug, bonusround.ca, go check them out. $2 a month. You get all of the Definition that you want. I think it's over 800 episodes of Definition is currently on the site, along with Test Pattern, Guess What, Mad Dash, Acting Crazy, Talk About, just a lot of great Canadian game shows. I know I just turned this into a plug, but I'm not being paid by them. I genuinely love the service, so go check it out. And by the way, Jim Perry, amazing on every show that he did. Although, to be frank, I do kind of wish he actually did host that episode of Studs that he appeared in, just to see how his old school sensibilities would have jived with that show. Now, I gotta be honest about 2 and 1. I flip-flop between these two for the longest time. But I have to take into consideration the impact about what happened with the hosts. So for number 2, I'm going with John Burgess for Ernie Sigley on the Australian Wheel of Fortune. Now, Ernie Sigley was the original host, really rough around the edges when it came to the contestants. John Burgess, very charming, very professional, and was the longest running host the show ever had. And I think it plays to his professionalism, it played to his style, and he wasn't afraid to make a fool of himself. We've all seen that infamous clip when he comes in for Celebrity Wheel of Fortune, falls on his butt, brushes himself off and goes, "And welcome." And then after a breath, he's like, "All right, who polished the floor?" And Burgess was great. Just to show how great he was, when the person who replaced him, Tony Barber, said it was the biggest mistake of his life because the people loved him so much. And what also I found interesting was, while researching, is that when Barber was slated to be let go, they offered John Burgess his job back with a massive pay increase, more than what Nine was paying him. But he declined. They burned him. And he did not take that too well. But John Burgess, also great on catchphrase, when it became Burgos' catchphrase. And Burgos the type of guy that he could still host a game show today. I mean, I enjoyed his style. I enjoyed everything that he did. And I just wish that more Australian game show content was out there. I mean, you have 2 big hitters, Sail of the Century, Wheel of Fortune out there. And I'm pretty sure there's tons of Price is Right. There's tons of Family Feud out there. Rock Quiz. Just a whole bunch of great content that I would love to see again. I know rights issues are a thing, but those can be worked out, and hopefully Australia can enjoy its vast game show history again. Oh yeah, here's some honorable mentions. I really enjoyed John Leslie on Wheel of Fortune. He was just a calm, stabilizing presence after the chaos that was Bradley Walsh. And I honestly think he did a rather stunning job with given what he had, because, let's be honest, when the show moved to daytime, the show was clearly on a decline, and he managed to host it just as well as he did when it was in primetime. And that's a sign of a good host. I wanted to put him on the list, the list proper. I really did, but I had to take into consideration that this was kind of like what happened in the U.S. with the $25,000 pyramid on CBS. In America, $25,000 pyramid was replaced by Blackout, and then Pyramid replaced it. Greg Evans was the original host of Perfect Match in Australia. He left to do some projects for, I think, he was slated to do projects for 7, but they benched him. So they had him with a big contract, did nothing with him for a couple of years. Cameron Dado filled in for Greg Evans for a couple of years, who did a pretty good job. But then, once the contract was up, Greg Evans got his job back. And he hosted just like he never left. And that theme song. Mwah, chef's kiss. If you can find Perfect Match Australia episodes, do check them out. Especially with Greg Evans and the robot. Staying in Australia, I feel sad for Tony Barber. He got stuck in an impossible situation. I mean, the host before him was a legend. And the person who replaced him, Rob Elliott, could have been a legend if, this is the big if, the network would stop ruining things. Rob Elliott got the blessing from everybody. The change out between Tony Barber and himself, very professionally done. I honestly love Elliott's hosting. And he just, even the primal scream when somebody won the car, yeah! It's just one of my favorite things. And like I said previously when I mentioned John Burgess on an Australian Wheel of Fortune, I want to see a lot more Rob Elliott Wheel of Fortune out there in the wild. I think it's untapped. And he's just really damn good. I asked a question on every social media site that I do. Facebook, Twitter, Discord. I asked them, is Robot Wars a game show? And overwhelmingly people said yes. And that means the number one pick is Craig Charles for Jeremy Clarkson on Robot Wars. I will be perfectly honest. The impact the show had, I don't think would have been as big as it was if Craig Charles did not replace Jeremy Clarkson. Because I don't think Jeremy Clarkson cared about Robot Wars for the season that he was on. He just saw it as another gig because Top Gear was off the air. And when Jeremy Clarkson was properly shown the door, Craig Charles came in and he treated it like as it was. It was this futuristic demolition derby, and it was just amazing to watch. Another thing that really got to me is that he used a lot of the sci-fi knowledge that he had from Red Dwarf. Sure, that was comedy, but all of that knowledge, brought it in to Robot Wars. And he didn't treat the robots as jokes. It was serious competition to him. And when he brought out Sir Kill-A-Lot for the second season, on his debut show no less, properly was able to show how much of a badass Sir Kill-A-Lot was. And just him hosting throughout all of the seasons of Robot Wars, it was just good television. The way he did the interviews, the way he hyped up the battles, the way he just did everything. Even with his slight comedy that he did. Like, I remember during the Best Bits special for season 2, the Plunderbird team had their own theme song, and he had the earplugs. The music was starting, he would just slowly put them in. Because, yeah, the song was bad, but he was great. I absolutely adore Craig Charles, and because of the way he was able to project that love onto Robot Wars, that's how you got the phenomenon that is BattleBots in the States. Sure, Comedy Central at first, but it was a serious show on Comedy Central, and it worked. That's how you kind of got the boon of the revival in 2015. Now enjoying a healthy run on Discovery Channel. I kind of wish he did host it again with the revival. I mean, I like Dara, but I don't think his style fit the show. And with that being said, Craig Charles, the best replacement host of all time internationally. Would I put Craig Charles in the top 5 when it comes to the list proper, combining both? I think he might be number 2. I still think Steve Harvey does. I still think Steve Harvey beats him, but it's close. But anyway, I'd like to thank everybody for watching this nice little top 5. Let me know in the comments what you think is the best replacement host internationally. Thumbs up the channel, share it on the social medias. If you have any suggestions, once again, leave a comment. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you want to see all of the big videos that we have coming out a day early, be like these wonderful people right up here and become a Patreon backer at patreon.com/GameShowGumbo. I am Cindy Seidelman, and I think I'm going to go watch some Robot Wars. Take care, everybody. See you next time.